Welcome to Mindful Live 111. I'm your host, Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. Tonight, we're talking Barbados, we're talking CARICOM, we're talking Caribbean. And, I think in the future, Wednesday night may be a good night to generally talk about the Caribbean. But greetings, Sucker for Sunsets over there on TikTok. But we're talking Barbados tonight. We're talking some of the measures that. Ooh, we're getting some double volume out there. Yes, we're talking some of the measures that Barbados is doing or has announced that they're going to be doing. Recently, the measures they announced to, fight back this whole inflation business, this inflation scourge, we could put it as, because pretty much all around the world we are seeing inflation on the rise. The break she's giving them till next year or end of year, yes, that's the break we're talking about. The break runs till the end of January. She's looking to get a hold of food prices, looking to get a hold of fuel prices, looking to get a hold of electricity prices and pull them down and allow Barbadians to have a little respite in this tough time. And who wouldn't like that? Who in Trinidad wouldn't like if tomorrow morning you woke up and Dr. Rowley was on the television announcing that the government is now going to pay some money to reduce food prices further? They're going to pump a little more into the fuel subsidy. The electricity prices are going to be pulled down a bit. Everyone would enjoy something like that, so of course people would enjoy that. But we're going to delve into it and see if it's something that is truly possible, and see Barbados, the situation that Barbados is currently in, and what this is actually going to cost them in the long run. So as usual, hit that like button, pump that like button wherever you are viewing this, and let's jump into this story. Phew! That's the name of the article. Phew! From the Barbados Today publication online. Barbados should start to feel some ease from spiraling food prices and electricity costs as early as next week, when a slash in the value-added tax on certain items is expected to take effect. Acknowledging the daily pressures experienced by Barbadians in coping with high prices of essential foods, electricity, and gas, Prime Minister Mia Mottley on Thursday announced an $18 package to bring an $18 million package, $18 million package to bring much needed ease. The relief measures saw an additional 44 food and household items included on a VAT-free list. In some cases, customs duties were removed from certain items, paving the way for reduced prices to consumers starting from next Thursday and ending January 31st next year. Now, in the first place, let's understand what VAT is. I think it's essential to understand what VAT is. So when a government says that they're giving us an ease, they're giving us a respite, the government is helping us. The government is reducing food prices by removing VAT on some items. Well, bear in mind, VAT is a tax. VAT is when you go to buy an item, the government takes a little extra out of your money. It's a tax. Just by the way, the more goodies you want from a government, the more generally they have to tax you. So, yeah, always have that in balance. You want more goodies, well, you're going to have to give more money to the government. Have that in balance. But yes, VAT is a tax. So when a government removes VAT, what they're doing is saying, okay, we are not going to take that money from you when you buy that good, when you buy that item, when you pay for that service. We are not going to take that extra bit of money from you. That's what the government is doing. They aren't paying money somewhere. They're refusing to take more money from you. In addition to the supermarket ease, parents of school-aged children would not have to worry about finding lunch for their wards during the summer holidays. Mottley said the school meals department will continue to provide lunches from July 25th to September 2nd this year. So there would be school meals, school lunches running through their holiday period. Good night, Tony the Ambassador. We believe, what Mottley said, we believe that this is a critical component in ensuring that our school children can have nutritious meals, while at the same time relieving the burden from off of the families from being able to move in a position where they do not have to buy additional groceries to ensure that their children can be fed during this period of time. So, school feeding program basically still running in the holidays so children can eat. Now, on the note of VAT and zero rated items, as a matter of contextualizing it and understanding perspective, I think it's wise to note that Trinidad and Tobago already has most, if not all, of what you would consider essential food items as zero rated items in VAT. That's already the case here in Trinidad and Tobago. Basic foods already VAT free. This is an article from 2 years ago. Since 2020, this was an article, and some people seem like they aren't aware of this in 2022 yet. Trade Minister Paula Gopi-Schoon has acknowledged a recommendation from opposition leader for the removal of import duties and VAT on basic food items as a part of the opposition's economic manifesto plan. But Gopi-Schoon noted yesterday that from 2015 to now, the Ministry of Trade has obtained CARICOM approval for the suspension of the common external tariff, which is another kind of tax. It's something you have to pay on importing goods on basic food items like milk, sugar, oil, cheese, corned beef, canned herrings, tuna, mackerel, sardines, pasta, infant formula, and juices. This means that all importers already pay zero import duties for the imports of said items. So when we're talking about what our government could do, if we're looking at Barbados and we're looking at Trinidad and we're wondering what more our government could do. Now, I am always one to hold the government accountable, but as we think about this sensibly, we have to be sensible about it. If it's already zero rated in VAT, you cannot double zero rated in VAT. The government has already stopped collecting VAT on those items. They cannot stop again collecting again VAT on again those items again. You know, it cannot be done again. They already stopped it. Now, there's a fact in some of this that some items where the government may have declared that they aren't collecting VAT on the item is a zero rated item. Now, the store you go in, they don't need to tell you that they could still have it with the markup as though it has VAT still on it. And they're pocketing that extra 12.5% or 15% according to how cruel they want to be. Good night, Mrs. Alijan over there on Facebook. In addition to this, since 2016, the government of Trinidad and Tobago undertook an aggressive rationalization of the VAT regime in Trinidad and Tobago. As a consequence of this exercise, the rate of VAT on standard rated items was reduced from 15% to 12.5% in 2016. On top of that, as a result of that exercise, the vast majority of basic food and essential items remained zero rated, meaning that no VAT is currently charged or payable on such items, and hence are already VAT free, which all customers will be able to see on any supermarket bill it added. So these things are already done. At least that part, that zero rated VAT part, we're already doing it. We cannot double do it. It's not going to reduce the prices anymore. That's not going to send the prices any further downward. The government is already not collecting any revenue on most of those items. Next thing they did though over in Barbados, the Ministry of Finance will also, this is the Barbadian Prime Minister speaking, will also offer relief for householders' electricity bills by ensuring we reduce the value-added tax from 17.5%. Bear in mind, their VAT is 17.5%, ours is 12.5%. Theirs is 17.5%, at least on the electricity bill. For the electricity charge, they reduced it by 10% for the electricity charge up to the first 250 kilowatt hours of everyone's residential electricity bill, she announced. So up to the first 250 kilowatt hours you use, you get a reduction in your rate over there in Barbados. Now, Motley said this will represent an average saving for every household of $17, whether or not they use 250 kilowatt hours. This is critical. And $17, bear in mind, this is EC dollars. What is the current EC to TT exchange rate? What is that currently? $2.51. So for every one EC dollar, that's $2.50 TT, 2.5. Just bear that in mind. So yes, this would be a considerable saving for them. That's a considerable saving. $17. Monthly cited data from the Barbados Light and Power Company, which reveals that 63% of all households in Barbados use 250 kilowatts of electricity or less. Now, when I read that, that struck me as being a little low. Now, I am not into the whole electricity business. I'm not a power guy. I don't know how much power every household uses, but it just sounded like not what I'm accustomed hearing when people talk about Trinidad and Tobago. 63%, that's considerably more than half. That's considerably more than half. That's going up near to 2/3 of Barbados uses less than 250 kilowatts of electricity. So I went to find out the comparative in Trinidad and Tobago. So they could have a reduction like that because their people use less electricity. How much electricity do we use in our homes in TNT? Good evening, Ronaldo Thorne over there on Facebook. How much electricity do we use here in Trinidad and Tobago? Residential, let's scroll down a bit. Consumption and price categories. Residential electricity consumption is priced based on the amount of energy used by a household on a bi-monthly basis. The usage categories are as follows: 1 to 400 kilowatt hours, 401 to 1000 kilowatt hours, and over 1000 kilowatt hours. Those are the three categories. Despite having three consumption categories at various prices, roughly 43% of all households in the country fell in the highest usage category of over 1000 kilowatt hours. In addition, the average bi-monthly consumption of these households in 2015 was roughly 2100 kilowatt hours. So that's 1100 kilowatt hours per month. How it's sounding like you pushing PNM narratives. So, well, I don't push any narratives because I don't read PNM narratives. I try to read news, or most of the articles I've read so far, and even from Trinidad and Tobago, I try to read news. Now, here's the thing: what you would realize is narratives from political parties almost always have some amount of fact in it. That's why it's an effective narrative. And when you think about it as being only a narrative, being absent of all fact, and you just push it away as being some kind of untruth, you lose the ability to actually rationalize with it, and you are unable to even convince people away from that narrative. So, yeah. Maybe it's the PNM's narrative. If that's the PNM's narrative, so be it. But stick with me, Mr. Kent Millett, over there on Facebook, and we're going to go through the Barbadian narrative, the narrative coming out of the American Treasury, to see what their narrative is about what is going on right now in Barbados. Now, someone was asking about how we use that much power. Well, here in Trinidad and Tobago, we are accustomed to a different lifestyle. We have had these subsidies for so long, we are accustomed to not having to pay, and we don't even consider how we use certain things. The amount of households in Trinidad and Tobago that have air condition, and I'm not even talking about super wealthy people, just average people, and air condition, and they'll just leave that air condition running all day. The average household in Trinidad and Tobago has at least one radio they never turn off. Many households in Trinidad and Tobago have multiple refrigerators, at least one freezer. You see that dryer. You know, I know some people, they just want their pillow to be a little fluffy for them to sleep on a nice warm pillow, and they'll throw it in the dryer and let a whole cycle go. They want to dry out their boxers for the morning, and they'll throw 2 boxers in the dryer and do a whole cycle on that. That's how we use that much electricity here in Trinidad and Tobago. So even if we could reduce those prices, maybe that would not have made sense, reducing those prices. And the second part is we're going to cost a lot more to attempt to reduce those prices, similar to what Barbados did. They are going further, however, than that. They are also removing them boxes behind the fridge. Well, that's what was done before, but now we are much more affluent than that. Dryer, man, forget all of that. Throw it in the dryer. Yeah, they're not only doing that, they're removing the duties on oranges and citrus items because and you know, this is where I could read Miss Motley. Listen. This is Miss Motley speaking. And you know, I don't know how many of you know her, but her voice sounds similar to mine. Yeah, similar to mine. We are going further. However, for there is no VAT on citrus, and we are now seeking to remove the duties on citrus, conscious that this effort will help Barbadians build their immune system and continue to help us in the fight against COVID, which regrettably is still very much with us, even though thankfully for the most part not as major threatening disease to the majority of Barbadians. They're reducing the duties on citrus to help up their immune system over there in Barbados. Well done, Miss Motley. Good for you, good for the Barbadians. But this, according to them, would cost Barbados an additional $18 million. Good night, Halley 59. This would cost them an additional $18 million. And regardless of how you think of these things, the money has to come from somewhere. So I wanted to figure how exactly is Barbados set up right now in the debt department? How exactly are they set up in servicing their debt? How do they get money? How will people lend them money to do these things? Yes, they are owing IMF. So I went over to a report done by the United States Department of the Treasury, a report done by the United States Department of the Treasury for their Congress, a report made for Congress, and it's published public, so you can have a read. And the Department of the Treasury in the United States, they would have a lot of the inside information on the economics going around, because nearly every single international bank or lending agency would deal almost directly with the American Treasury for obvious reasons, US dollars and all. So this is a report to Congress on the International Monetary Fund's loans to Barbados and Suriname. Nice breakdown. Listen, if you're very interested in the information, all of the information for nearly everything is always out there. Kent Millet asks, so what you really saying? What's your point? Are you saying that Trinidad don't have money to do like Barbados? No, I am saying that Barbados doesn't have money to do like Barbados. You're missing my point. I am not saying that Trinidad doesn't have the money to do that. Trinidad can do that. Trinidad is able to do that. But we would have consequences to face later down the line. And we would have to decide, just as Barbados has to decide. Now, I am not even saying this is necessarily a bad decision for Barbados. Maybe Miss Motley is weighing her options and deciding that even though in the long run we would have to pay for this, it is worth it in the short run to brace the difficulty of now. Now, I am saying when you're looking at this, you need to have all of this in your mind. You need to be aware of this. This isn't just a give out of candy. This isn't just a give out of sweet stuff and nice stuff and niceties. This is a give and take. It's just the give is now and the take would be later. They already sent home half their public servants. They go send home the next half in about 10 years. All right. So the breakdown starts with Barbados. Barbados, this is a nice summary of where Barbados is at right now in their financial situation. Barbados has struggled to break free from a vicious cycle of low or negative growth since the 2008-09 global financial crisis. On October 1st, 2018, with public debt at around 160% of GDP, the country entered a 4-year extended fund facility For SDR 208 million, about $290 million from the IMF. So there are some concepts to break down right at the start here. The first thing is that money being used to build Balize House can be used to help children get uniforms for the new school term. I don't disagree with that. Trinidad has the money, but not for the average citizens. It's for the big boys. I don't even disagree with that. I'm not saying that we aren't a very corrupt country. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm talking about how we relate with these things and what we wish for. Even in corruption, even with corruption, you could be a corrupt functional country or you could be a corrupt defunct country. There's a vast difference between Trinidad as it is right now and Sri Lanka, for example. And things can get worse. That's all I'm saying. So in whatever you ask for, in how you're thinking about it, let's have the facts in mind. So the first thing is Barbados debt to GDP was 160%. 160%. Now, let's break down what a debt to GDP is. The GDP is how much you're making. That's how much your country producing. This is, if you're a person, how much you're producing per month, your total gross income per month. That's your GDP. And your debt is obvious, how much you owe. The percentage, that ratio, debt to GDP, is the percentage of your GDP that your debt is. If your debt is 100% of your GDP, what that means is if you take everything you produce in your country and pay it into your debt, you would only be able to run even in servicing your debt. When that percentage crosses 100%, what that means is that now your debt is what that means is that now your debt is even greater than your GDP. Let's go a little quick brief on what happens when countries do not pay back their debts, because eventually what happens when your debt to GDP rises too much, your debt rises too much where you default on your loans. You cannot pay back your debts, so you default on your loans. And what happens then? Because if you default on your loan as a private citizen, the bank could just foreclose and take your car, take your property or something like that. What is an international bank going to do? What are international money lenders going to do? How are you going to figure that one? Well, there are steps that they can take. No, they cannot repossess Barbados. No, they cannot go and seize piece of Barbados. That is not what actually happens. There's the reputation mechanism where, generally speaking, you have to have a good reputation in order to borrow money. Most countries do nearly everything out of credit. They need to borrow money to get projects done. If you have defaulted on your loans, no one is going to lend you any more money. That's the first thing. All right. Effects of sovereign debt. Some of the common effects of sovereign default are as follows. Interest rates rise. The most immediate impact is the borrowing cost rates. The borrowing cost rises for the nation in the international bond market. If the government itself is borrowing at a higher rate, then the corporates also have to borrow at increased rates. So all the lending rates throughout the country are going to go up. Trade and commerce is negatively affected since banks are skeptical of lending money at high rates to borrowers. That's one. Exchange rates. Your money is going to become extremely devalued because when you default on your loan, all the foreign companies are going to say, well, wait now, this country cannot pay back their debts, so we are getting out of here. And they are going to try to sell your currency. All of the TT dollars that they have, they will attempt to sell it because it isn't worth much to them anymore. And in everyone attempting to sell it, it's going to drop the price and the value of your TT dollars. Bank runs, it's the same principle, just with individual citizens. Okay, they don't trust the country anymore. They want to go into the bank and take all their money out of the bank, because here's what happens. I don't know how many of you remember when Greece defaulted on their national debt. I can't remember when that was. It was probably about a decade ago, around that time. Greece defaulted on their national debt, and the country had to pay back a lot more money than they had. And the government seized private savings. Private savings. Your account that you have there inside of Republic, inside of First Citizens or Scotia, wherever, with your little money there, the government went in and said, well, we need to take a certain percentage from every account because the country really needs it. That's what happens when a country defaults. That's the game you're playing when you keep running your debt so much higher than your GDP. You keep borrowing more and more and more until you are unable to pay. Now, Barbados hasn't defaulted on their debt. That's not necessarily what is going to happen here. Part of the reason is because Barbados now is borrowing from the IMF. As stated in the beginning here, they entered a 4-year extended fund facility. What an extended fund facility is, good luck if Trinidad feel my 1579 saving go help. Listen, if the government try and rake out some of them millennial spending, some of them millennial savings, they will be shocked. Trinidad will remain bankrupt. Some of those millennials you see, they're driving the Lantra. They have on the Air Max. They're in the party. They're drinking nice, but the savings dry. Yeah, but bro, PNM running up our debt same way and the country not seeing a dime of it. Watch the condition of our roads. Where all the money going? Well, here's the thing, Mr. Kent Millett. Some of these things have empirical evidence. Trinidad and Tobago's national debt to GDP ratio is 66%. That's well below 100%. I mean, obviously, you would want it lower than that, but that's at a relatively manageable level. And it seems like the present government, even during the times of pandemic, did not run that up to an unmanageable level. So, granted, we may not be getting all that we want from them, but the debt situation isn't some kind of scary thing. We are not watching the jaws of the IMF closing in on us. We are not watching the reality of defaulting on our debt closing in on us either. Just by the way, as I said, these things have empirical evidence to it. Right, so they entered this EFF, and what this EFF is it's a loan. But what this loan does, you could hear it, you could get it right from the IMF's mouth. When a country faces serious medium-term balance of payment problems, because I really like their fancy language. Jeez and ages. I don't understand what Kent Millett over on Facebook is insisting I am a PNM. He's insisting I is a PNM. Because I quote for this is to me, this is what being partisan in politics does to your thinking. It really skews your thinking. You can't help but see everything through the lens of who is a PNM and who is a UNC, who on my side, who not on my side, while it's just facts. It's just facts. The facts don't have a side. The facts don't have a side here. It's just the fact of the matter. I'm taking this from the World Bank. You can literally go and look at Trinidad's debt to GDP as it changes year in, year out. Do you think that the PNM has the power to bribe the World Bank? But it's like you saying the country doing good. Mr. Kent Millett, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, you sound too anti-PNM. You are so caught up on being anti-PNM. You are hearing things that I am not saying. I literally just said, yes, we may not like what we are getting inside the country, but we cannot say that the debt is raising. The debt, we're talking about something specific. It's like, I remember doing this exercise back in 2010 when that was one of the first really heated elections we had in Trinidad and Tobago on the online level. And I remember doing this exercise and I asked as a status way back on Facebook back then, if anyone can say something positive about someone in an opposing party to the one they're going to vote for. And you would be surprised how difficult that is for someone else to do. You would be surprised how difficult that is. Many people, if you ask them, just say something positive about this person you dislike, They are unable to do it. They are unable to separate the emotion of disliking someone with the reality of whether they are actually good at something or whether they are doing this thing in a positive manner. It's impossible for so many people. That is a sad thing. Rahul says, I think Trinidad is extremely divided and blinded by politics. That's pretty obvious. That's pretty obvious. That's pretty obvious. All right. So what Barbados entered was basically a loan program. It was a loan program they entered. And you could read it straight from the IMF. I like how they speak in their fancy language about this. When a country faces serious medium-term balance of payment problems, and because of structural weaknesses that require time to address, the IMF can assist through an extended fund facility compared to assistance provided on the standby arrangement. So what the extended fund facility is going to do is the IMF staff is going to come into your country and help to, structurally reorder certain aspects of your economy to ensure that you're going to pay them back. So that's what Barbados is currently in. They are already in the grasp of the IMF. And the IMF is already deciding some of the economics inside of Barbados. That's already the case since 2018. Because of the need for assistance to respond to the COVID-19 crisis, the United States supported the restoration of access to World Bank financing for Barbados. And here's another bit of fancy language. The United States, they agreed to support Barbados getting another loan from the World Bank. And here's why the United States needed to give Barbados that backup. Because Barbados, which had previously graduated from eligibility to borrow. Let me run that by you again. Barbados had graduated from eligibility to borrow. Listen, I want to be able to, when I'm insulting people, that's the kind of insults I want to do. I want to have that kind of language. So basically Barbados, the debt in Barbados was too high, so they couldn't qualify for a loan anymore. That's it. When you don't qualify for a loan, what is actually happening is you have graduated your eligibility to borrow. You have graduated from that eligibility to borrow. That's what really went on. So Barbados wasn't in a position to be able to borrow anymore, but the US backed them in being able to re-access the World Bank finances because of the COVID-19 pandemic. And in the Inter-American Development Bank, which does not have a formal graduation policy, the United States agreed to support loans to Barbados for the purpose of responding to the pandemic. So the United States supported World Bank loans. So this is on top of the IMF. They have the World Bank loans that they got access to. And then that's the IADB loans. In December 2019, Barbados completed a successful external public debt restructuring. Let me move on quickly. All right. So let's see what this is all going to cost Barbados in the end. Under the current EFF, the country authorities have shown strong ownership of the reform effort and program implementation. The rapid completion of a domestic debt restructuring reduced the public debt to GDP ratio and improved the sustainability of government debt. While Barbados met all program targets for June and September 2021, IMF staff proposed modifying some program targets to reflect the effect of natural disaster shocks. Listen to this and listen to the technical jargon well. IMF staff noted that Barbadian authorities will need to deliver more ambitious fiscal adjustment in years ahead to compensate for the loosening of these targets. You heard that? let me run that again. The IMF staff noted that Barbadian authorities will need to deliver more ambitious fiscal adjustment in years ahead to compensate for the loosening of these targets. So The IMF staff loosened their targets. What their targets are targets to reduce your debt. They reduce your debt by, generally speaking, stringent measures on your economy. And when the pandemic hit, they loosened some of those targets on Barbados. So what Barbados is using right now, the $18 million that Barbados can use to fund what they are going to do right now, that money is from the loosened targets that the IMF staff allowed them. But it is said right there that they're going to have to deliver more ambitious fiscal adjustment in years to come. What do you think more ambitious fiscal adjustment means? That means you're going to have to tighten your belt a lot tighter in years to come. So while, yes, they will be able to save right now, yes, they are able to help out their citizens right now, this is surely going to cost them in the long run. And the thing is, it's not just about whether they would be able to produce enough resources to pay back all the debts. It will be what the IMF staff determines that they have to do in order to service that debt. Bear in mind, many people who might be old enough may be able to remember that part of the reason, at least allegedly part of the reason for the social discontent in the country during 1990 and leading up to the 1990s coup was the very same thing, those austerity measures coming from the IMF. And the measures was like discipline on a spoiled child when it hit Trinidad and Tobago. You put that kind of discipline on spoiled Trinidad and Tobago. Can you imagine we who using 2,200 kilowatt hours every 2 months? We get some stiff austerity measures where you cannot use gas at this time. You have to turn off your lights at this time, etc., etc., etc. Of course, we're going to flip out, and no wonder. Listen, if that happens again, next coup might happen. Some of these millennia, you see, if the internet go down. Listen, if we go back up to, if you want a revolution in Trinidad and Tobago, revert to dial-up internet. That's all you need. Revert to dial-up internet, and your revolution, sure. So, when you're looking at Barbados, keep all of this in mind. Now, I am not saying that this is the wrong decision for Barbados. I am not a Barbadian. I am not the Barbadian Prime Minister. Obviously, I am not saying this. I don't know if it's the wrong decision. I am just saying that in the long run, it's not like it's only going to be positive. We need to be able to see second and third order principles. What would be the consequence? What's going to happen after this? And then what? And then what? And then what? What's going to happen after that? You see, for example, the pandemic itself. Many people were happy about the lockdowns. Yes, let's lock down. Lockdown is what we need. A lockdown is going to keep everybody alive and save Granny's life. While on the other hand, Granny may have still died. And now on the other side of the lockdowns, we're seeing crime spikes. We're seeing education plummeting. We're seeing prices skyrocketing. And many people weren't thinking about that when they were running into the lockdown. So, not saying it's the wrong decision. I'm just saying that yeah, there are trade-offs. You're going to get some positive here, but you're going to have to pay back for it in the long run. Now, that was not all that the Barbadian Prime Minister did. Those were the things that cost her money. However, there were other measures that they took that I think, hey, Bing Bong Kid, I was the cash out ritual yesterday. How are you? I am well. You were the one who accosted me if I wanted donuts or not. Nice to have you in the live, man. Nice to be here. All right. That wasn't the only proposal that the Barbadian Prime Minister made, though. Those were the proposals that would cost money. That's why I dealt with that. Some of the other proposals I like. We have also concluded a compact. Blessings, Trinal Johnson over on Facebook there. that will be signed on Saturday morning with the private sector that will lead to the reduction of prices on 44 key items for a period of 6 months from the 21st of July of this year to January 31st, 2023. Motley disclosed. The Prime Minister said supermarkets, wholesalers, distributors, and farmers have agreed to review their markups, and for the 44 items have embraced, for the most part, with the exception of 2 or 3, to have markups range between 12 and 15%. This, she explained, will ensure that all Barbadian households, particularly vulnerable, could benefit from a drop in price. This I like. Now, and this I think is the government's job. This I think is the government's purview. You go, you meet with the business sector, you discuss with them, good night ministry. you discuss with them and you get an agreement done. Now, this agreement doesn't only benefit the government, because yes, it benefits the government, as in the citizens are going to benefit and the government is going to look good, but it will benefit any business person that participates in this. Why doesn't the government start, okay, we're going to start a print. We're going to, I am not going to say it, the Grinch. We're going to start printing a list of supermarkets who are willing to place their profit margins on record. How many supermarkets would be willing to do it? Let's have a list of them. The supermarkets who would be willing to place the percentage of their profit margins on record. So their customers are going to know, all right, when I shop at XYZ in XYZ grocers, I know they charge a 10% markup on most of their products, on their essential items. That's something a government can actually get into. And that's actually what they did over in Barbados there. They spoke to the business community, and the business community and them signed a compact. And I think this was a both handshaking kind of thing. She went through and listed several prices there. If you're so interested, you could go and check the prices of goods over in Barbados. Lots of prices. All right. The prices continue. While praising the social partnership for working with the government to bring the country to this place, the Prime Minister suggested that going the route of price controls would have led to scarcity and adversity and corruption. Here's the thing. Some people ask for price controls. They want the government to control the price. Government come in and the government dictates what this price is going to be. Even over there in Barbados, that's not what they're doing. That's not what they're doing. Yeah. That's not what they're doing. They aren't controlling the price from the government. The government had a discussion with the private sector, and the private sector has agreed to hold their profit margins at a certain level. That's a whole different thing. And I think something like that can actually work in Trinidad and Tobago. That part of the idea, I think, is functional even in a country like ours. Why not? If the supermarkets agree to display what their profit margins are going to be, then the shoppers there could feel reassured with the fact that, okay, if I'm paying 3 times the price that I would have paid before, the problem isn't that the supermarket is digging out my eye, proverbially. It's that's what the price is on the international market. But as of now, you are not sure about that. You are not sure about that. And I think someone said with Massey and them, I think ignore Massey them. Massey and they are conglomerates. They're massive. They mightn't be interested in something like that. But Trinidad has many independent supermarkets. Many independent supermarkets. We don't only have those massive chain supermarkets. There are independent mini-mart supermarkets on all corners all around this country. That's something I think is doable. If you want to control the prices of those things, that's how you do it. You speak to the business sector and they could determine the fluctuation in prices based on their profit margins. I think that's a viable solution. As to the other side, about how much the government should pay into these things, money doesn't grow on trees. And even in Barbados, we see as they're spending that money, they are going to have to pay it back eventually. It's something that's going to have to come out of their pockets eventually. All right. People still shopping in Massey store? Well, apparently Massey store is still open, so I suppose people must be still shopping. I suppose people are still shopping there. The stores are still opening. New ones are opening, in fact. So someone is still buying from them. All right, folks. That's all I have for now on this CARICOM Caribbean Mindful Live night. As I said, I think Wednesdays might be the Caribbean night from now on. We may do Caribbean things on Wednesday night. I just want to be so mean on TikTok. Ha. Behave yourself. Please, please have some decorum, please. No meanness. But yes, that's Massey just opened another branch in San Juan. So I heard. They're opening all about. Thanks, brother. Blessings. Continue breaking down the information for us. No problem, Barry, son. Billy appreciate the knowledge, bro. No problem, but it's my actual account. We need to buy more from the farmers. Agree on that, John Robbie. Buy from the farmers. Buy from the farmers. Cut the line and go to the farmer and buy. I am a full endorser of that. Buy from the farmer. No problem with me on that front. Now, for those of you watching this live over on Facebook or TikTok, feel free to head over to my YouTube channel, Nathan Spring, over on YouTube, and you can subscribe to it so you can see the lives there whenever you miss them, or all of the other lives that you may have missed if you are so interested in it. And there are videos published there on not a daily basis, but on a semi-regular basis. Semi-regular, sometimes daily, sometimes not so daily, and those videos are informative as well. So feel free to head over to Nathan Springer there on YouTube and be sure to subscribe. That's all I have for now, folks. I'm a bit beat tonight. I think I'm going to have me a quick earlier rest. I will see you guys tomorrow. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained. Oh my God, you have to pay to subscribe on TikTok. Yes, that's what I heard. I was excited. I'm thinking I was going to start to get subscribers out here. But no, you have to pay to subscribe. As I told people before, do not pay your money to TikTok to subscribe. If you do want to support me in any kind of financial way, don't pay your money to TikTok. Don't pay your money to TikTok. Message me. We know how to transfer money here in Trinidad. Don't give TikTok your money. All right. Thank you, folks, for joining in. I'll be here tomorrow for the next Mindful Live at around 9 p.m. I will see you then. Hope you're educated, informed, or entertained. And see you later. Peace, peace, peace.